This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Coveil. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. We can all lose our mind about certain things at certain points in time. Happens to the best of us. Not so much where they ship us off to the padded white room and give you an intravenous drip, or perhaps they put that ice pick behind your eyeball to wake you up with that full frontal lobotomy. I'm not sure exactly what I'm talking about. Let me jump right in. So I received an email from a gentleman who I don't think I know, but if I do know you and you're listening, please don't rip me. Or if you do want to rip me, I will still sleep like a baby anyways. It says, "Greetings, Mr. Coveil. Below is my most recent Dow Theory analysis. Just wanted to say I enjoy your podcast. By the way, I reminded that the fundamental investors, they are closet trend followers with a focus on rising earnings, dividends, cash flow, and book value. Buffett's preferred method for measuring his performance." Well, I don't know if they are closet trend followers and following fundamental information. I mean, look, everyone's got to have a trend to make money, but Buffett's preferred method for making money, the best that I can tell, is to have a hotline to the president. Because when you are so intimately close with the likes of Goldman Sachs and things go wrong, he sure as heck wasn't focused on fundamental information in making his decisions. He was manipulating the system to his good old advantage, and more power to him. I am definitely not complaining. I just don't like the idea that we don't really properly describe Mr. Buffett. That's not the point. Let me jump into this gentleman's blog post that he forwarded along to me because it's quite interesting. So it talks about Dow Theory was a buzz after the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the Dow Jones Transportation Average made all-time highs in early March. The guy goes on to say that the Dow capitulated to inexorable forces that had long since propelled the Dow Jones average above the 2011 all-time high. The transports confirmed. He goes on to talk about some quotes from Dow theorist Richard Russell. And Russell said on March 11th, quote, "Yes, I know this market is uncorrected during its long rise from 2009 low, and I know there are risks in buying uncorrected advance that is becoming uncomfortably long in the tooth. My suggestion is that my subscribers should take a chance. After all, Columbus took a chance and take a position in the Dow." Interesting. Well, let me just talk about that for a second. Richard Russell's been around for a long time, and many people that know of technical analysis think of Dow Theory and Richard Russell. I saw him speak once in San Diego, and I did follow his writings some in 2009 and 2010. But he got it all wrong. And he was calling for the end of the world. And if you would have followed his advice, because he wasn't a trend-following trader, he was using subjective discretionary views on what he thought the markets were doing, would do, and what the government or Fed might do or was doing wrong. I share a lot of his views about the economy. I share a lot of his views about the Fed. I don't like the way the system is going. However, the Dow has gone up. The Dow has gone up. And he got it wrong, way wrong. So I just want to go back to the language that he uses, because this is where, in my journeys here in Asia, I've seen a real issue with people not understanding the difference between predictive technical analysis and reactive technical analysis. Predictive technical analysis would be Richard Russell. He's saying the market's not, he says the market is uncorrected. What does that mean exactly? He says there's risks in buying an uncorrected advance that's becoming uncomfortably long in the tooth. Uncomfortably long in the tooth is so subjective. Look, Richard, I'm not picking on you, and I'm sure you don't give a rat's whatever about what I have to say. But that's just not trend following in my world. Perhaps the predictive technical analysis world works. I've just yet to see a track record, the actual track record that shows that it works. I think it's also interesting, too. He says that you should take a chance. After all, Columbus took a chance. Well, Columbus took a chance, indeed. But the funny thing about using the word Columbus is it is definitely old school and slightly incorrect. In fact, just the other day, I saw a report where they were finding Chinese coins 600 years ago, from 600 years ago in Africa. So the bottom line is that, and clearly Asians came across the land bridge. That was who founded America. So I'm not a big fan of the old Columbus story anymore. I'm going off on a tangent. Yes, I get it. So anyways, back to this blog post. He goes on in the article to quote Russell again, and Russell says, quote, "I really believe that subscribers should take a flyer on this market. After all, after weeks of flirting with a new high in the industrial average, the Dow finally confirmed the previous record high of the transportation average, with the industrials and transports both in record high territory. I think being in the market is justified under Dow theory." I think. Dow theory is quite subjective. Trend following, on the other hand, is the reactive technical analysis. It is simply following the price. It's not the price of one market, the market you're trading. In a portfolio context, yes. But if the market's up, you're long. If the market's down, you're short. There's no other subjective interpretation. This is an Elliott wave. It's not Dow theory. Repeat, trend following is not Dow theory. It's not Elliott wave. It's not Gann. It's not anything that Tom DeMark is describing. It is price action based. That's it. So anyways, the gentleman that sent me this blog post, he goes on within his blog post to talk about the difference between bull markets and whether or not we're in a secular bull market. And there's all kind of data, and you're supposed to look at volume. And, once again, it's the industrials and the transports and the volume all tied together. And he quotes, in the seminal book on Dow theory titled The Stock Market Barometer, written by William Peter Hamilton, it says the following about trading volume. Quote, "It's worthwhile to note here that the volume of trading is always larger in a bull market than a bear market. It expands as prices go up and contracts as they decline," end quote. But he goes on, and, this is data that you can, I'm not picking on him for using this data. It's a true statement. He's showing that trading volume for industrials and transports has been declining since the 2009 low. So lower volume. And so anyways, he goes on to say, in order for Dow theory to have relevance, increasing volume needs to accompany the rise of the stock market. Well, it's not. So you have Richard Russell on one side saying, hey, jump in. And then you have other people saying, well, hold on, there's not the right volume to trade it. Once again, discretion, discretion, discretion. This isn't the trend following way. The trend following doesn't use any of this. And in many ways, if you think about it, this discussion of volume, right? This discussion of confirming the Dow and the transports, they have to confirm together. This is almost fundamental like. Trend following says if the market, let's say it's oil, is currently trading at 90, and let's say the 100-day highest high is oil trading at 95. You take a long position in oil. That means you buy oil. You don't know what's going to happen next. You can't predict what's going to happen next. You have no earthly idea. But you're now long oil. You're long. You're sitting there. You don't know anything about OPEC. You don't know anything about what's going on in Dubai, Saudi Arabia. You know nothing of the latest, greatest hotel being built in that area. You don't know anything about tanker flow across the high seas. You don't know anything about pirates. Heck, you don't know who comprises OPEC. Who knows? I mean, obviously, we can figure that out with a quick Google search. That's not the point. The point is, from a trend following perspective, it's all irrelevant. Anyways, this blog post goes on to give a bunch of charts showing the trading volume and whether or not it could possibly be a true bull market, who knows? Who knows? You'll never know until after it's over. You'll never know until after it's over. He goes on with a ton of charts. I'm scrolling through this thing right now. And he quotes William Peter Hamilton again, and at the end, and he says, well, first off, before he quotes him, he says, the above examination of trading volume based on what we believe to be reliable sources has us concerned that a new secular bull market is not really what we're witness to. He says, as William Peter Hamilton has said in the Stock Market Barometer, quote, the professional speculator is no more superfluous than the pressure gauge of the steam heating plant in your cellar. Wall Street is the great financial powerhouse of the country. It is indispensably necessary to know when the steam pressure is becoming more than the boilers can stand, end quote. This gentleman ends his blog post by saying the pressure in the market is building, and we may be watching the beginning of the most spectacular stock market blow-off ever, just before an even more astonishing decline. I mean, this isn't trend following. And I'm not trying to be a mean guy. He wrote me and he sent me his blog post and he said very nice things about my podcast. But that last sentence, if you hear a sentence like this, it's not trend following. The pressure in the market is building, and we may be watching the beginning of the most spectacular stock market blow-off ever, just before an even more astonishing decline. Maybe. That's the operative phrase. Maybe. Who knows? You won't know until it's over. So if you're not going to know till it's over, how the blank can you trade it? You can't trust maybes. You can't trust that. And trend following is not that. That's what's so exciting about trend following. That's what's so cool about it. You don't have to have these phrases like maybe in your dialogue. That's not part of your trading program. Maybe. Well, maybe after you take an entry in a trend following system, you might get stopped out. Maybe. But you know what? You're prepared for it. You know a couple things can happen after you go long in oil. Oil could turn around and go the other direction. You could get stopped out. We know that. Or it could take off on a huge trend, and you're going to ride that trend all the way till the end until it bends. And you don't care about anything else except the price action telling you what to do. That is the name of the game. I'm not saying that's easy, but heck, it's easier than sitting there and saying, Ben Bernanke is my father. I love Ben Bernanke. He will take care of me. He will tuck me in at night. I love Ben Bernanke. He will take care of me. He will tuck me in at night. Perhaps he might even give me a kiss on the cheek. I'll feel so much nicer. Hey, the Dow's up right now. The Dow is up. You're long. You got your stops in place. What's going to happen next? No one knows. Richard Russell, Dow Theory guy, he says get long. The guy that sent me his blog post, he says we're going to have a spectacular crash. Flip a coin. Russell's right, though, in the sense that you should be long because the price action is up. However, predicting anything about what that means is insanity. Take a long position and have your stops in place. Then perhaps go to the nearest Asian city that you've never been to and experience some really cool food. I think I'm going to eat for like the 5th day in a row more Penang food. I have clearly adopted the spice mentality. I have no problem eating the spicy stuff. Love it. Just love it. And oh, by the way, yoga today. Yes. A fine yoga instructor named Hui, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, beat the tar out of me. Now, I know yoga instructors don't want to hear me using those phrases, but look, I'm an old baseball catcher. I can't get over it. I was sweating profusely. She absolutely beat the tar out of me. I needed it. It's the first time I'd done yoga in 10 days, so I needed it bad. And she was great. She was great. Yeah, it's funny. I'm finding with a lot of yoga instructors, too, they often leave these corporate world jobs for something more simple. And this young lady, she had left the corporate world too, had been involved with a lot of tech firms, so quite Quite interesting, but just a very, very deliberate practice for those of you out there in yoga, just very deliberate practice. And I mean, forcing me on form, wow, even in a downward dog, something that I think I generally am pretty good at. Just forcing me to get into more refined positions and postures within each one of the postures. So quite exhilarating. I think I'm still in my yoga bliss, by the way, actually. But as I want to play, a clip though, as I jump away from yoga and get back to something that perhaps has got a little bit of a tone that's non-yoga. But as I talk about these differences between, let's say, trend following and Dow theory, trend following and Richard Russell, feel free to email me and ask me any questions, because this is one of the most confusing things out there for people. If you turn on CNBC, if you turn on Bloomberg, they are never talking about reactive technical analysis. They've always got some dingling on there that is talking about what's going to happen next, predicting the future. And that's completely nonsense. I've never seen a professional track record of any trader that shows month-by-month performance, perhaps even for decades, using predictive technical analysis. It looks great in the books. It sounds fantastic. It is great cocktail hour banter. But it is not real. It is just not real. And so I want to just give that little few second reminder here. It's all about reading the book, as George C. Scott once said.
Magnificent bastard, I read your book!
I just love that. I've loved that forever. I love that film. Not from an American-centric mindset, but I just love the attitude of that film. I love Patton. And regardless of the country you're from, Patton, the character, the man, the legend, the myth, quite interesting guy. I believe, I'm not mistaken, he was an Olympian too. I mean, the guy did everything. I want to end here, though, with, I'm actually not going to end. I'm going to play something, though. It's kind of a long clip. This is from the famed basketball coach, John Wooden, at UCLA, who is no longer with us. He lived, I think, to a ripe old age of 97, 98, 99, something like that. And but he had a brilliant way about himself, and he inspired a lot of people. And this is an excerpt that I think you'll enjoy. I can't remember if this particular excerpt, I've watched so much of Wooden, I can't remember if this is the one where he gives the example about tying your shoes and putting your socks on. I guess it was more about putting the socks on correctly. And literally, he would have detailed discussions with his basketball players about how to put your socks on correctly. Really detailed. You see, that might sound silly. Why does anybody need instruction on how to put socks on? Because if you're going to play the game of basketball, you can get blisters. And if you get blisters, you can't play the game of basketball. So John Wooden got down into the nitty-gritty. Very inspirational guy. Let me let this play. It's about 15 minutes, and then I will jump back in with a little commentary after.
I coined my own definition of success in 1934 when I was teaching at a high school in South Bend, Indiana, being a little bit disappointed and delusioned perhaps by the way parents of the youngsters in my English classes expected their youngsters to get an A or B. They thought a C was all right for the neighbor's children because the neighbor's children are all average. But they weren't satisfied with their own and would make the teacher feel that they had failed or the youngster had failed, and that's not right. The good Lord in his infinite wisdom didn't create us all equal as far as intelligence is concerned, any more than we're equal as far as size, appearance. Not everybody could earn an A or B, and I didn't like that way of judging. And I did know how the alumni of various schools back in the 30s judged coaches and athletic teams. If you won them all, you were considered to be reasonably successful. Not completely, because I found out we had a number of years at UCLA where we didn't lose a game, but it seemed that we didn't win each individual game by the margin that some of our alumni had predicted, and quite frequently I really felt that they had backed up their predictions in a more materialistic manner. But I was true back in the 30s, so I understood that. But I didn't like it. I didn't agree with it, and I wanted to come up with something that I hope would make me a better teacher and give the youngsters under my supervision, whether it be in athletics or in the English classroom, something to which to aspire other than just a higher mark in the classroom or more points in some athletic contest. And I thought about that for quite a spell, and I wanted to come up with my own definition. I thought that might help. And I knew how Mr. Webster defined it as the accumulation of material possessions or the attainment of a position of power or prestige or something of that sort, worthy accomplishments perhaps, but in my opinion, not necessarily indicative of success. So I wanted to come up with something of my own. And I recalled I was raised on a small farm in southern Indiana, and Dad tried to teach me and my brothers that you should never try to be better than someone else. I'm sure at the time he did that. It didn't. Well, somewhere, I guess, in the hidden recesses of the mind, it popped out years later. If you make the effort, do the best of what you're capable, trying to improve the situation that exists for you, I think that's success, and I don't think others can judge that. I think it's like character and reputation. Your reputation is what you're perceived to be. Your character is what you really are, and I think the character is much more important than what you are perceived to be. You'd hope they'd both be good, but they don't necessarily be the same. Well, that was my idea of what I was going to try to get across to the youngsters. I ran across other things. I love to teach, and it was mentioned by the previous speaker that I enjoy poetry, and I dabble in it a bit, love it. And there are some things that help me, I think, be better than I would have been. I know I'm not what I ought to be, and not what I should be, but I think I'm better than I would have been if I hadn't run across certain things. And one was just a little verse that said, no written word, no spoken plea can teach our youth what they should be, nor all the books on all the shelves. It's what the teachers are themselves. That made an impression on me in the 1930s, and I tried to use that more or less in my teaching, whether it be in sports or whether it be in the English classroom. And I love poetry and always had an interest in that, and somehow, and maybe it's because Dad used to read to us at night with a coal oil lamp. We didn't have electricity in our farm home, and Dad would read poetry to us, so I always liked it. And about the same time that I ran across this one verse, I ran across another one that someone asked a lady teacher why she taught, and she, after some time, she said she wanted to think about that, and then she came up and said, they ask me why I teach, and I reply, where could I find such splendid company? There sits a statesman, strong, unbiased, wise, another later Webster, silver-tongued. A doctor sits beside him whose quick, steady hand may mend a bone or stem the lifeblood's flow. And there a builder, upward rise the arch of that church he builds, wherein that minister may speak the word of God and lead a stumbling soul to touch the Christ. And all about a gathering of teachers, farmers, merchants, laborers, those who work and vote and build and plan and pray into a great tomorrow. And I may say, I may not see the church or hear the word or eat the food their hands may grow, but yet again I may. And later I may say, I knew him once, and he was weak or strong or bold or proud or gay. I knew him once, but then he was a boy. They ask me why I teach, and I reply, where could I find such splendid company? And I believe the teaching profession, it's true, you have so many youngsters, like I think of my youngsters at UCLA, 30-some attorneys, 11 dentists, 10 doctors, many teachers in other professions. And that gives you a great deal of pleasure to see them go on. I always tried to make the youngsters feel that they're there to get an education, number one. Basketball was second because it's paying their way. And they do need a little time for social activities, but you let social activities take a little precedence over the other two, and you're not going to have any very long. So that was the ideas that I tried to get across to the youngsters under my supervision. I had 3 rules pretty much that I stuck with practically all the time. I'd learned these prior to coming to UCLA, and I decided they were very important. One was never be late. Never be late. Later on, I had certain things that I had the players, if we're leaving for someone, they had to be neat and clean. There was a time when I made them wear jackets and shirts and ties, and then I saw our chancellor coming to school in denims and turtlenecks, and I thought it was a little not right for me to keep this other, so I let them they had to be neat and clean. And I had one of my greatest players that you probably heard of, Bill Walton, he came and gets the bus. We were leaving for somewhere and to play, and he wasn't clean and neat, so I would let him go. He couldn't get on the bus. He had to go home and get cleaned up to get to the airport if he could. So I was a stickler for that. I believed in that. I believe in time, very important. I believe you should be on time, but I felt at practices, for example, we start on time, we close on time. The youngsters didn't have to feel that we're going to keep them over. When I speak at coaching clinics, I often tell young coaches in the coaching clinics, more or less, they'll be the younger coaches getting in the profession, and most of them are young, you know, and probably newly married. And I tell them, don't run practices late, because you'll go home in a bad mood, and that's not good for a young married man to go home in a bad mood. When you get older, it doesn't make any difference. But so I did believe on time. I believe starting on time, and I believe closing on time. And another one I had was not one word of profanity. One word of profanity, and you are out of here for the day. And if I see it in a game, you're going to come out and sit on the bench. And the third one was never criticize a teammate. I didn't want that. I used to tell them I was paid to do that. That's my job. I'm paid to do it. Pitifully poor, but I am paid to do it. Not like the coaches today, for gracious sakes, no. It's a little different than it was in my day. But those are the three things that I stuck with pretty closely all the time. And those actually came from my dad, and that's what he tried to teach me and my brothers at one time. I came up with a pyramid eventually that I'm not going to, we don't have the time to go on that, but that to help me, I think, become a better teacher. And this is something like this, and I had blocks in the pyramid, and the cornerstones being industrious and enthusiasm, working hard and enjoying what you're doing, coming up to the apex, according to my definition of success, and right at the top, faith and patience. And I say to you, in whatever you're doing, you must be patient. We have to have patience. We want things to happen to us. We talk about our youth being impatient a lot, and they are. They want to change everything. They think all change is progress. And we get a little older, we sort of let things go, and we forget that there is no progress without change. So you must have patience, and I believe that we must have faith. I believe that we must believe, really believe. Not just give a word service. Believe that things will work out as they should, providing we do what we should. I think our tendency is to hope that things will turn out the way we want them to so much of the time, but we don't do the things that are necessary to make those things become reality. I worked on this for some 14 years, and I think it helped me become a better teacher, but it all evolved around that original definition of success. You know, a number of years ago, there was a Major League Baseball umpire by the name of George Moriarty, and he spelled Moriarty with only one I. I'd never seen that before, but he did. And big league baseball players, they're very perceptive about those things, and they noticed he had only one I in his name. And you'd be surprised how many also told him that was one more than he had in his head at various times. But he wrote something that I think he did what I tried to do in this pyramid. He called it the road ahead or the road behind. And he said, sometimes I think the fates must grin as we denounce them and insist the only reason we can't win is the fates themselves have missed. Yet there lives on the ancient claim, we win or lose within ourselves. The shining trophies on our shelves can never win tomorrow's game. You and I know deeper down there's always a chance to win the crown, but when we fail to give our best, we simply haven't met the test of giving all and saving none until the game is really won. Of showing what is meant by grit, of playing through and others quit, of playing through, not letting up, it's bearing down that wins the cup, of dreaming there's a goal ahead, of hoping when our dreams are dead, of praying when our hopes have fled, yet losing, not afraid to fall. If bravely we have given all, for who can ask more of a man than giving all within his span? Giving all, it seems to me, is not so far from victory. And so the fates are seldom wrong. No matter how they twist and wind, it's you and I who make our fates. We open up or close the gates on the road ahead or the road behind. Reminds me of another set of threes that my dad tried to get across to us. Don't whine, don't complain, don't make excuses. You get out there and whatever you're doing, do it to the best of your ability. And no one can do more than that. I tried to get across to that. My partners will tell you, never heard me mention winning. Never mention winning. My idea is that you can lose when you outscore somebody in a game, and you can win when you're outscored. I've felt that way on certain occasions at various times. And I just wanted to be able to hold their head up after a game. I used to say that when a game is over and you see somebody that didn't know the outcome, I hope they couldn't tell by your actions whether you outscored an opponent or the opponent outscored you. And that's what really matters. If you make your effort to do the best you can regularly, the results will be about what they should be. Not necessarily what you would want them to be, but they'll be about what they should. And only you will know whether you can do that. And that's what I wanted from them more than anything else. And as time went by and I learned more about other things, I think it worked a little better as far as the results. But I wanted the score of a game to be the byproduct of these other things, and not the end itself. I believe it was one great philosopher said, Cervantes. Cervantes said, the journey is better than the end. And I like that. I think that is. It's getting there. Sometimes when you get there, that's almost a letdown. But it's getting there that's the fun. I like to, as a basketball coach at UCLA, I liked our practices to be the journey, and the game would be the end result. And I'd like to go up and sit in the stands and watch the players play and see whether I'd done a decent job during the week. There again, it's getting the players to get that self-satisfaction, knowing that they've made the effort to do the best of which they are capable. Sometimes I'm asked who was the best player I had over the best teams. I can never answer that. As far as the individual is concerned, I was asked one time about that, and it said, suppose that you in some way could make the perfect player, what would you want? And I said, well, I'd want one that knew why he was at UCLA and to get an education. He was a good student, really knew why he was there in the first place. But I want one that could play too. I'd want one to realize that that defense usually wins championships and to work hard on defense. But I'd want one to play offense too. I want him to be unselfish and look for the pass first and not shoot all the time. And I'd want one that could pass and would pass. I've had some that could and wouldn't, and I've had some that would and could. You couldn't. So your child. So I wanted that, and I wanted him to be able to shoot from the outside. And I wanted to be able to be good inside too. I'd want him to be able to rebound well at both ends too. And why not just take someone like Keith Wilkes and let it go at that? He had the qualifications, and not the only one, but he was one that I used in that particular category because I think he made the effort to become the best. There was a couple. I mentioned in my book, They Call Me Coach, that two players that gave me great satisfaction and came as close as I think anyone I ever had to reach their full potential. One was Conrad Burke, and one was Doug McIntosh. When I saw them as freshmen on our freshman team, we didn't have freshmen, couldn't play varsity when I taught, and I thought, oh gracious, if these two players, either one of them, they're different years, but I thought about each one of them at the time he was there. Oh, if he ever makes the varsity, our varsity must be pretty miserable if he's good enough to make it. And you know, one of them was a starting player for a season and a half, and the other one was his next year. He played 32 minutes in a national championship game, did a tremendous for us. And the next year he was a starting player on the national championship team. And here I thought he'd never play a minute when it was. So those are the things that give you a great joy and great satisfaction to see one. Neither one of those youngsters could shoot very well, but they had outstanding shooting percentages because they didn't force it. And neither one could jump very well. But they kept good position, and so they did well rebounding. They remembered that every shot is taken, they assumed it'd be missed. I've had two men that stand around, wait to see if it's missed, then they go, it's too late. Somebody else is in there ahead of them. They weren't very quick, but they played good position, kept in good balance. And so they played pretty good defense for us. So they had qualities that they came close to, as close to reaching possibly their full potential as any players I ever had. So I consider them as to be as successful as a Louis Alcindor or a Bill Walton or in many of the others that we had. There were some outstanding players. Have I rambled enough? I was heard that when he makes his appearance, I was supposed to shut up.
I just love him. I think his words will be timeless. Wooden's words will be timeless 100 years from now. Unless we're all hooked to the Matrix and we're all pumping full of some Star Wars blood of some sort and we've all become robots, Darth Vader-like creatures. Maybe Wooden won't matter at that point in time, but I doubt it. I doubt it. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.